I never imagined I'd be the one to walk away from my family. I always thought I'd be the reliable son, the one who would stick around, help out whenever needed, and be there for my parents no matter what. But money has a way of revealing people's true nature. My name is Ethan, and I have a twin sister, Ava. Growing up, we were always treated a little differently. Ava was the shining star, charismatic, athletic, and the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one. I preferred books over sports, coding over social events. It wasn't that I resented Ava, I didn't, but I always knew that. Between the two of us, she was the favorite. Still, I never expected things to unfold like this. We both graduated from college on the same day, a milestone that should have been celebrated equally. Ava pursued a degree in marketing, the traditional route, while I had been working online since I was 16, freelancing and saving every penny I could. By the time we graduated, I had built a comfortable financial cushion, not rich, but secure. The day after graduation, my parents surprised Ava with a brand new luxury car, a gleaming white Audi. She was ecstatic, jumping up and down, hugging our parents like they had just gifted her palace. I was happy for her, truly, but I couldn't help but wonder, what about me? I wasn't expecting a car. That wasn't my style. Maybe a thoughtful gift, a handwritten letter, or even a simple "we're proud of you" would have meant something. Instead, my dad handed me an envelope, and as soon as I held it, I felt a strange pit in my stomach. Inside was a bill, a long list of numbers, balances, and a final total. I stared at it in confusion. "What is this?" I asked. My mom smiled as if she had just given me the greatest present in the world. "It's only fair, Ethan. You've been working for years, saving up. It's time for you to help out the family." My dad nodded. "Ava hasn't had the chance to save yet. She needs support starting her life. But you're responsible. You've got money. This is just a small way for you to contribute." I felt my blood run cold. They weren't giving me a gift, they were handing me their debt. They expected me to pay off their expenses while Ava got rewarded with a luxury car. And worse, they genuinely thought this was fair. I looked at Ava, expecting, I don't know, some guilt, maybe a simple, "Hey, this isn't right." But she just shrugged and said, "Come on, Ethan. You always say money isn't important to you." That was the moment I made my decision. I took a deep breath, folded the bill neatly, and slid it back into the envelope. "Thank you for this," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's a real eye-opener." My mom beamed. "I knew you'd understand." I smiled back. Then I packed my bags and left. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just walked out. They didn't try to stop me. Maybe they didn't realize what I was doing, not yet, anyway. But that would change soon enough. Because 2 weeks later, the desperate calls started. I ignored the first, then the second. By the third, my voicemail was full of messages from my parents, my sister, even my uncle. At first, they were casual. "Hey, Ethan, just checking in. Call us back." Then they became more urgent. "Ethan, we need to talk." Then, finally, came the panic. "Why aren't you answering? We need to talk." Then, desperation. "Please, Ethan, we didn't mean it like that. Just call us back." But I didn't. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of acting like nothing had happened. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first. The first week after I left, I stayed at a budget motel in another state. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, but I knew I wasn't going back. I had enough savings to figure things out. But my parents? They weren't as lucky. By the second week, my sister started calling. At first, it was all bravado. "Dude, stop being ridiculous. Just come back already." I blocked her number. Then my mom switched tactics. "Ethan, honey, we're struggling. You know we've always been there for you. Can't you just help us out a little?" That was rich coming from the woman who had smiled as she handed me an invoice instead of a congratulations. Then the real panic set in. One night, I was checking my email when I saw a message from my dad. Subject, "Please read this." I hesitated, but curiosity got the best of me. "Ethan, we're in trouble. We took out some loans we can't pay back, and we thought we could handle it. But things are getting worse. Ava doesn't have the means to help us, and we thought you wouldn't mind. You've always been so independent, so responsible. We misjudged the situation, and for that, I'm sorry. But we need you. Please, at least call us back. I stared at the email for a long time. It was the first time they had even come close to admitting they were wrong. But it still wasn't an apology. Not really. They weren't sorry for how they had treated me. They were sorry that I had left. And now their perfect golden child wasn't enough to fix their problems. For years, I had watched them favor Ava, give her everything, make excuses for her while expecting me to be the responsible one. And now, when their choices had finally caught up to them, who did they turn to? Me. Because Ava, the daughter they had spent years prioritizing, wasn't capable of helping them. I closed the email without responding. Then, a few days later, I got the call that changed everything. It was my uncle, and for the first time, I hesitated before ignoring it. I stared at my phone for a moment before deciding to pick up. I didn't know what to expect from my uncle. He wasn't as involved in the drama, but he had always been somewhat of a peacemaker between me and my parents. Ethan, his voice was soft, almost pleading. Can we talk for a minute? I sighed. About what? About your parents? They're worried about you. Yeah, I know, I said, keeping my tone level. But I think they're a little more worried about themselves right now. There was a long pause. Then he said, please, don't be like this. They made a mistake. They thought you would understand. They didn't mean for things to go this way. I could hear the desperation in his voice, but I wasn't backing down. Not now, not after everything that had happened. I took a deep breath and asked the question that had been swirling in my mind for days. Why, Uncle David? Why did they buy Ava a car if they're struggling? If they're in debt, how is that even possible? How could they think that's okay? There was another long pause. Then, finally, he spoke. But his voice was shaky. I don't know, Ethan. They thought they could handle it. They always wanted to give Ava the best. And they figured it would be a good way to celebrate her graduation. They never imagined you'd leave over it. I felt the weight of his words, but it didn't change anything. My parents had always put Ava first, given her whatever she wanted. And now they had crossed a line that I couldn't ignore. And what about me? What did I get for graduating? An invoice? An invoice for their debt? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. He was quiet for a moment. They didn't know how to show you they were proud of you. Ethan, they thought you'd understand because you've always been the responsible one. But they were wrong, and they regret it. They really do. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. It's not about that. It's about respect. It's about how they've treated me all these years. How they've always put Ava on a pedestal and expected me to take care of everything else. I could feel the anger rising, but I kept my voice steady. They didn't give me a car, an opportunity, or even a proper thank you for all the work I've done. Instead, they gave me their problems, and now they want me to fix them. Uncle David was silent for a long time. Ethan, I think they're finally realizing they've messed up. They just don't know how to fix it. Please, come home. Let them make it up to you. I wasn't sure if I could. The emotional toll was too heavy. But something inside me softened, just a little. Maybe, I said, but they have to show me they're serious. This can't just be another excuse. If they really want to fix things, they need to prove it. Uncle David sighed in relief. Thank you, Ethan. I know this isn't easy. Before I could respond, he added, but there's something you should know. Ava called me too. She's been asking if you'll come back. She's not as indifferent as you think. I frowned. Really? Her? Actually concerned. Yes, he said quietly. But it's more than that. She's starting to see the bigger picture. She's starting to realize just how much you've done for the family, and how much she's taken for granted. I didn't know what to think of that. Ava, the golden girl, realizing her actions. It sounded too good to be true. But maybe, just maybe, things could change. I still didn't know if I was ready to go back. But I had a feeling this story wasn't over yet. And in the next conversation, I would hear something that would push me to finally make a choice. The days passed, and I stayed in my little motel, sorting through my thoughts, still refusing to call back. But then something unexpected happened. It was a Thursday evening when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Ethan. It was Ava. Yeah, I replied, my voice cool. Ava's voice was shaky, and there was a long pause before she spoke again. Ethan, I'm sorry, but things got worse. Mom and Dad, they didn't listen. I tried to talk to them, but they're stubborn. They kept insisting they'd manage, but now they've had to sell the car. My heart sank, but a part of me couldn't help but feel vindicated. They sold the car. I repeated, my voice cold. Yeah, Ava's voice cracked. They had no choice. The bills piled up, and we couldn't keep up with the payments anymore. They sold it. To cover some of the debt. It's gone, Ethan. I don't know what to say, man. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. A rush of satisfaction washed over me, mixed with something darker. They had chosen Ava. They had handed her the car and thrown my efforts in my face. And now, with all their mistakes catching up to them, they were losing it all. I wanted to gloat, to rub it in their faces. But I didn't say a word for a long time. Ava kept talking, her voice breaking. But I couldn't bring myself to feel sympathy. Finally, I spoke, my voice firm. Ava, you didn't have to lose the car. You should have known this would happen, that they wouldn't have the means to keep up. They always expect me to clean up their mess. But this time, I wasn't there to pick up the pieces. Ava was silent. I warned them too, I continued, my words sharp. When they handed me that bill instead of a gift, I told them it would come back to bite them. And now it has. Ava's voice grew desperate. Ethan, please. I know this is messed up, but they didn't mean for this to happen. We never wanted it to turn out like this. I paused, savoring the feeling of power in this moment. I had finally broken free from their grip, from the years of being second place. You know what, Ava? I said coldly, maybe it's a lesson they needed to learn the hard way. If they'd been a little more thoughtful, they wouldn't be in this situation now. I hope it stings. Ava started crying, and for a second, I almost felt guilty. But then, the image of my parents' smug smiles when they handed me that bill flashed in my mind. I didn't feel guilty. Ava's sobs echoed through the phone, but I didn't offer comfort. Instead, I hung up, and for the first time, I felt a sense of justice. The scales were balanced, and my family was finally learning the consequences of their actions. The next few days were quiet. I kept to myself, staying in the motel, not responding to any messages or calls. I wasn't even checking my phone much except to catch up on work. It felt freeing, honestly. I didn't have to deal with anyone's drama anymore. Then, on Sunday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I was about to ignore it, but something inside me told me it was time to face it head on. I picked up. Ethan. My mum's voice came through, shaky and desperate. Please, can you just hear us out? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, slowly exhaling. It had taken them this long to come to me, and it felt good to know they were finally on the other end of the phone. Ethan, we know we messed up, she continued. We never should have put all that pressure on you. We should have been better. My mom's voice trembled. We're so sorry. Please come back, we'll fix everything. Just come home. I could hear the pleading in her voice, but it didn't move me. This was the same woman who had always told me to be responsible while giving Ava everything she wanted. The same woman who, instead of appreciating my hard work, had handed me a bill for their failures. Mom, you're sorry, I said slowly, letting the sarcasm seep into my words. You're sorry for what, exactly? Buying Ava a car while I was left to handle your mess. Is that what you're sorry for? Or are you just sorry because you had to sell it? Silence. I could almost hear her mind scrambling, trying to process my words. The reality of what she had done sinking in. Ethan, we never meant for things to get this bad. My mom finally said, her voice breaking. Please, just come back. We'll do whatever it takes to make it right. You're still our son, and we love you. I rolled my eyes, even though she couldn't see me. It felt almost pathetic, hearing her beg after everything they had put me through. I'm sure you love me, I said, my tone flat. But love doesn't fix years of favoritism and neglect. You didn't think about me once when you made those decisions. Not once. I let that sink in before adding, and frankly, I don't need your apology. It's too late for that. You should have thought about this before. The line went quiet again. I could feel my anger simmering beneath the surface, but I kept my voice even, just like I'd learned it over the years. I'm not coming home. Mom, you made your choices, and now you're living with the consequences. I'm not here to clean up your mess anymore. A long, drawn-out pause. And then my dad's voice came on the line, strained, desperate. Ethan, please. We were wrong. We see that now. We never meant to push you away. I let out a low, humorless laugh, my voice dripping with contempt. You didn't mean to push me away? Well, you sure had a funny way of showing it. You bought a car for Ava, handed me a bill, and expected me to just keep taking it. You didn't push me away, you kicked me to the curb. Please, son, my dad's voice cracked. We were just trying to give Ava something. We wanted her to feel proud of her graduation, and we thought that would make it right. But we've realized it wasn't worth it. Not if it meant losing you. It almost felt like they were groveling now, and the power was entirely in my hands. You're right about one thing, Dad, I said, my voice sharp. You lost me, and you're not getting me back just because you suddenly realized your mistakes. I let the silence stretch between us, making sure they understood that this wasn't something they could just fix with a few empty words. I'm done here, I said coldly. So keep your apologies, keep your guilt. And next time you want to celebrate someone, maybe think about who you're leaving in the dust. Without waiting for a response, I ended the call. I stared at my phone for a long time, the satisfaction of finally putting my foot down settling in. They had taken me for granted for far too long, but now they knew what it felt like to lose me. Their apologies echoed in my mind, but it didn't matter. They had their chance, and now they would have to live with the consequences. A new chapter. Weeks passed after that phone call, and I didn't hear from them again. The silence was almost louder than the chaos that had led up to that moment. I went on with my life working, enjoying the peace and freedom I had fought so hard to create. Then, one afternoon, a package arrived. It was from my parents. I stared at it for a while, unsure of what it could be. The thought of them trying to contact me again made me hesitant, but curiosity won out. I opened the package. Inside was a simple letter, handwritten. The paper was creased from being folded too many times. Ethan, we don't expect you to forgive us. We know we hurt you, and we've realized we lost something far more important than a car or a gift we could never afford to give you. But we want you to know we're sorry, and we'll always love you, even if you never come back. Please don't forget that. I read the letter twice, my eyes scanning over the words, feeling nothing. It wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. Without a second thought, I tossed the letter into the trash. The satisfaction of not being swayed by their last-ditch effort settled in. I wasn't angry anymore, just indifferent. As for Ava, I had received a few more texts from her apologies for being caught in the middle, for not seeing things sooner. I ignored them too. She had chosen her side. She would have to live with the consequences of that choice. Life went on. I kept growing my business, kept moving forward with my plans. It was all on my terms now, and I wasn't about to let anyone, least of all my family, take that from me. And as for them, well, they would always have their regrets, but at least I didn't have to carry the weight of theirs anymore. The end, or the beginning. This wasn't a tragic ending. It was a reminder that sometimes you have to walk away from the people who never truly saw you to finally see yourself. For me, this was the start of a new chapter. At the end of the day, Ethan made a bold choice. He stopped letting his family's actions dictate his worth. It wasn't easy, but by walking away, he finally took control of his own future. It's a hard truth, but sometimes the most important relationship you can nurture is the one with yourself.